Okay, so my dear student, in order to strengthen this concept of what of the block diagram, so I think that's better to give you some examples of block diagram. And this first example, we call it the general block diagram. So the general block diagram, okay, of what of electronically, of most, not all, but most of them, most electronics system, most electronics system. So actually this general block diagram has 4 blocks, and these 4 blocks you will find them when you are trying to split any electronic system, whether it is simple or intermediate or complex. You can break down into these 4 blocks. For example, once you open this multimeter, this is a multimeter. It contains several measuring instruments and several testing instruments. And once we have a particular measuring instruments, it means that we have a particular part of the circuit that facilitate us to do such kind of the measurement. Are we together? Yes. So the role of this multimeter, it means that you can take this multimeter or the circuit or the schematic diagrams of this multimeter, or originally before even designing the schematic diagram, it means that the designer of this multimeter, he or she begins on designing its block diagram. Okay, the block diagrams can have even maybe more than 10 blocks, but generally, when you say generally, we have a big picture, right? So it means that the block diagrams, the general block diagrams of this multimeter it can be broken into these 4 parts, right? So that is in case, so you can say that. But also, once we take a complex electronics consumer device like this one as a smartphone, or or I think an iPhone, something like that, or smartphones or iPhone. So even these, we call them modern handsets, you can split its circuits or its in motherboards, just we say that motherboards including the battery, the display, you can split it into these 4 blocks. For example, the power supply for this smartphone actually contains the battery, contains the charging IC, and contains also some other electronics components that actually will be maintaining or will be regulating the amount of voltage. Because, for example, the USB cable is providing 5 volts. But once you read the specifications, the amount of the voltage that can be stored in the battery in most of the mobile phones is 3.8 volt. So you have 5 volts as the input at the supply. But the one required to be stored is 3.8 volts. So it means that there should be a circuit there to lower the voltage from 5 volts to 3.8 voltage. Even you take a computer, maybe an Apple computer, or maybe a Windows computer, or just a Toshiba computer. So once you take it, you can have an overview in the big picture. For example, for these smartphones also, the processing unit, we have a microcontroller which contains billions of the transistors. And those billions of transistors are mostly transistors which are actually operating in high and low state, right? But also, once we come and talk about the input unit, once of the input part for these smartphones, the input part, it contains the keypad. The keypad is an input. You are writing messages, you want to write a number, you should need a keypad. Once it's not working, you cannot inject the keypad. But the second part of the input is the video camera, right? Or still pictures camera. It's one of the input. But against the input part for this smartphone, it's a microphone. Once you talk with your father, or you are talking with your children, if you have children, or if you are young brothers, Then actually we are talking, there's a microphone, actually that we call it a surface mounting microphone that picking your voice. Are we together?
Yes.
Are we together?
Yes.
So you see that so it means the microphone, the video camera, the keypad, all of them, so we categorize them into the input unit. The battery, the charging IC, integrated circuit, and some other parts also, voltage regulators and whatever, we categorize them in this block. Okay, the microcontroller, right? The microcontroller or the microprocessor, actually that's because it's a huge IC. You can find, maybe it can have 100 pins, right? And it should have a heat sink. It's the one that is present the system of processing to make decision, actual to display the outputs, etc., 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 right? But again, you have another block, we call it output unit. What are the output unit of this smartphone? Can you mention? I have some local students. Can you mention some parts that contributing, or just the actual, give you the overview? These are the output. The first one, the display, right? The display is actually displaying characters. If you're watching a video, you need a display. Without a display, you cannot see anything. Are we together? The second component for the output unit? Speaker. Very good. Clap your hand for her. Don't clap your hand as just in jealous. Yes, you have to do it this way. As how we used to do in primary school, even in baby care school. So 1, 2, 3, so let us go. Ongera, Imara. Wow, that is engineering students' gilling. Wonderful. Others they say, it's normal. It's normal. It's not normal. If it is normal, just go to the DIT then and attend the classes. Students are angry all the time. They don't ask you questions. Did you understand? They are just watching over you. Didn't you understand? They are watching over you. Okay, wonderful. I had the second part, because now our students, they know there's a motivation. The third part for the output. The third part. Oh, you wanted to mention those two. The third part. Try to think. The third part of the output. We mentioned the display. We mentioned the speaker. The third part? The torch. Yes, the torch. Do we have torch in most of the smartphones or iPhone?
Yes.
Yes, the torch is the output because it's giving light. Clap your hand for him. So 1, 2, 3. So you find students, they will answer a question because they know they'll be congratulated, and you remember your baby care school. At that time you didn't have stress like now, right? Yes. You know, my father is there and my mother is there, so food will be there, Paul will be there, so I should not worry about anything. We used to be worried just to play, and we don't have any life stress. But nowadays you have to check the pocket money. You have to live in terms of binary number. You know binary number life wonderful. 001, 010, 101, 111. Yeah, that's the lifestyle we experienced. So 010 means what? Lunch, no breakfast. Lunch, no dinner. 101, breakfast, no lunch, no what? And then what? Dinner. But mostly we used to experience 0111 and 011. So no breakfast, lunch is there, and dinner is there. That's how lifestyle it is. And it's good to experience that. Because even in our family, you tell them, today, unfortunately, my kids, I have nothing to put on the table. Wow, mother, so are we going to fast? Yeah. Better to be in prayer. Wonderful. So, another output. So we have a torch, we have a speaker. I am teaching you with vivid examples in order to understand and keep it in your mind. Right? You have a speaker, you have a torch, and then you have what? A display, right? Another output peripheral. Think. We have so many outputs here. Another output peripheral? Eh? Another output peripheral? Eh? Calculator. Vibration, vibrator. Yeah. So a vibrator, because there's a particular part for vibrations. That is not about the speaker. The speaker is something else, and the vibrator is something else. Right? And that's why that a speaker can be working, but the vibrations is not there. Are we together? So vibrator, right? Because that is outputting. And if you want to enjoy the vibrator, have an exam and put the alarm without a vibrator. Then you wake up the next morning, you didn't go through, you are angry, but no way out, and then you hear swallow, 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 you know that you have already failed. Okay, another one. Okay, so even those, they have given you over. So it means that now, as electronic engineering students, you have to go and think about different systems. For example, for the computer, what the power supply for the computer. For the computer, if it's not if a desktop, it should have a battery, right? But the battery itself is not the one that it's not the one that consists in the power supply unit. There are some other components. Are we together? Yes. Then what the input units of the computer, you have to go and check. So now you see that in your overview. So it means that this is the way you have to think as electronics engineer. Are we together? Yes. Take the big picture and think about that. Then, once you understand about the big picture, you can go to schematic diagram. So a schematic diagram is a detail that, for example, what are the components for this power supply unit? But once you go to the schematic diagrams and then you don't know the big picture, actually be passing through as a magazine. Have you ever read the magazine? Yes. You can read the magazine from the first page to the 20th page, and then you understand nothing. And you remember nothing. Except if it is not entertainment magazine. If it's entertainment, you know, you keep every sentence including the point, the full stop. Are we together?
Yes.
Are we together?
Yes.
Okay. So that is all about this one. And there's another thing that we have some signal, something we call it a signal in electronics. And in every electronic system we have power signal and information signal or data signal. So power signal, actually the power supply unit is the one that's powering all the electronics parts. Are we together? So for example, this power supply powering how many blocks? 3 blocks. So this is power, so this we call it power signal. Say power signal.
Power signal.
Again, say power signal.
Power signal.
And also this is power signal. This is power signal and this is power signal. So you have 3 power signal. First one, the second one, the third one. Are we together?
Yes.
Then we have information signal or data signal. Information signal, for example, in input unity, for example, we have a microphone. What the main functions of the microphone is to take the human voice or to take any voice, because a microphone, a mobile microphone can take any voice or any sound, right? And once it takes, it conveys into what? Electrical signal. So that once we call it information or data. Are we together? Are we together? Yes. It's not the power signal. That is information signal. But in order for the microphone to work, it needs power. And that's why we have this arrow, for example, if you take a microphone. Are we together? Then the processor, actually, in most mobile phones, it's microprocessor or microcontroller, depend, right? But in most cases, especially for these smartphones which are looking like a computer, the processing unit is a microprocessor. Okay? So the microprocessor actually contains billions, say billions, of 40 transistors, and actually it's MOSFET transistors or FET transistors. And these transistors are just turning on and off automatically with a particular sequence or a particular order. Okay? So now this guy is not going to process power, he's going to process the information. Are we together?
Yes.
Once it processed, for example, the sound has been processed in the processing unit, and then, for example, that maybe I have a microphone, then I want maybe the microphones to take this information, and maybe I want my father to hear me, right? So once it processes, again, you'll find in case of the communication handset or mobile phones, we need another block that we call the communication unit. So the communication unit is the one that taking the information and send it to another place, which is not there. Are we together? Yes. But now let us take our input as a camera, right? So the input is the camera. What the information? It's the motion picture, right? Motion or still picture, depend. For example, if it's just a video camera, recording camera, it means it's motion picture. But if it is a normal camera, it means it's still picture, right? So that still picture will be taken into the system processing or control unit in order to be processed, right? Once it's been processed, then now it can be displayed in the output unit on your display, right? So it means that the picture, emotion or the still picture is not the power signal, it's information or data signal. Are we together, students?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is, so as a beginner in practical electronics, you have to bear that in your mind. Once you see any block diagrams, when you see the schematic diagram, have to think, what are the arrows or lines representing the information signal and power signal? It will simplify your thinking, it will simplify your troubleshooting, it will simplify your understanding, more than you think. For me, I spend a lot of times just to identify this because I was going through myself. Nobody who has told me at the beginnings of my journey. Are we together? But once I realized the secret, even if that I meet with the new schematic diagrams of a particular circuit, I can analyze it. Maybe I cannot understand everything, but most of the parts I understand. Are we together?
Yes.
Are we together, students?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it means that we have an assignment to go and take even your television set. You didn't open inside of it, but you have to think, what are the inputs of this television set? What are the output? What the processing unit? What the information signal that you think? What the power unit for this television set? You're always watching at the normal person there, picture or the video from your television receiving handset, receiving from your television receiver. But you don't think beyond that. But I think from today, I know you do something, is it? Yeah, always you say yes, but once I make a follow-up, I find no, somehow, I was busy, I've been given an assignment by my mom, whatever. Okay, so the second example is the general block diagram. So this is the second example. Second example, actually it is what? The general block diagrams of most communications or telecommunication system is shown in figure 2.2 below. So this is figure 2.1, and I told you the names that you have, right? And this is figure 2.2. Okay? So once we say that communication system, telecommunication systems means that we have something we call the network part, or we have something we say that it may be transmitter and receiver. We have to expect those stuff. Right? And in case in telecommunications or communication, we have mainly two ways of communicating or transmitting the signal. It can be either guided or unguided communication. Right? So whether guided or unguided, the transmitter should be there, the receiver should be there. Right? So you can find that we still have the four blocks that we had here, right? Power supply unit, then input unit, output unit, system or processing or control unit, then communication unit. So this is the additional. And this communication unit we just say in the big picture. But we can have a transmitting unit and receiving unit. And a good example is our smartphone. So in our smartphone now, if you analyze, the power supply is what? Power supply unit is what? The battery is what? And the charging circuit. Right?
Yes.
Eh?
Yes.
What are the inputs of our smartphone? Or any smartphone?
Keyboard.
Huh?
Keyboard.
Keypad. Not a keyboard, keypad.
Keypad.
Keyboard is for computers. Say keypad. Speak loudly.
Keypad.
Yeah. The second input unit.
Camera.
A
Camera.
camera. Video camera or still picture camera? Camera, eh? So, okay. The second input unit?
Microphone.
Microphone. The fourth one? You just know those three, eh? Or at least that you know those three. Good. Then we go for what the processing unit. For example, what are the processing activities that the mobile phone is doing? One of the processing unit to receive, to read the input and display the output. But also mobile phones, do you know that they have to make decisions?
Yes.
They do decisions. How, for example, if you want to get in M-Pesa. So actually the program says to make decisions. If you are right, then the next menu will be open. If you are wrong, try it again. That's a decision. Are we together?
Yes.
So that's all about processing, and that's the functions of what? Microprocessor. Right? What are the output unit? Speaker. Isaiah, you are not mentioning. Speaker, then?
Display.
Display.
Torch.
Torch. Another one? Vibrator. So Isaiah, the one still mentioning. The other members of class, they didn't remember that. Vibrator, right?
Yes.
Etc., etc., etc. Right? Then we come to the communication unit. What are the communication parts that maybe you think from this smartphone?
Message.
Message? No. We are talking about hardware. We're not talking about the information that you introduce to the mobile phone. The messaging part is the input, but it is injected by using the keypad. So the communication for this one, this is transceiver handset. Say transceiver handset. Transceiver, actually transceiver is a device which it can transmit signals and also receive, either maybe in particular order that the transmitter transmits while the receiver is not receiving, or sometimes it can transmit and receive simultaneously. Right?
Yes.
So that's what you used to call in telecommunication what? I think that is something, there's a particular name, I don't remember exactly. Okay, so it means that this is transceiver. So the handset, it can receive information, it can also transmit what? Information. But what are the parts of this communication? For example, the transmitter. Any transmitter, what are the components, the main components of the transmitter? The transmitter. We expect you to have a modulator circuit, right? To modulate what? The information signal, the carrier signal, right? You must expect also to have an antenna. Every smartphone has an antenna. We call it a PCB antenna. PCB board antenna. It's there. If, for example, the next time I can show you, it's there. I saw myself. I saw it's there. Either iPhone or smartphone, it has an antenna. Otherwise, there's no communication. But also there is what? Transmitter and transmitter circuit and receiver circuit. But also there is the network IC, network integrated circuit. Are we together? So there is a transmitting antenna and receiving what? Antenna. There is a modulator and what? Demodulator. It can be either AM modulation, it can be either FM modulation, because these smartphones, they use up FM modulation. That's why they have FM radio, so FM modulator should be there, right? And FM demodulator should be there. Are we together?
Yes.
Are we together?
Yes.
Or modulator should be there and demodulator should be there, right? And other parts of 40 of telecommunications always are there. So you understood now the first block or 40 of communication, right? Similarly, we still have what? What are the names of number 1, 2, and 3?
Power signals.
Power signals. So how many power signals do you have here?
4. 4.
4 power signals. Power signals. And then I had this one and this one. This is what also?
Power signal.
Power signal. Okay? Power signals. So plural. What are the names of this and this and this?
Information signal.
Information signal. So it means A, B, and C. These are information or data signal. So whenever you find any communications or telecommunication system, you can have a big picture like that. In these blocks, it can consist of maybe even 20 components. You should not worry. But those 20 components, they are doing a function of power supply. Are we together?
Yes.
Once you go into the schematic, you have to represent each component itself and how it is interconnected with others. But in block diagrams, this is the hidden. So in block diagrams, as I said, that the block diagrams is not a detailed diagram. It's not a detail. It does not give you. So for example, in block diagrams, maybe you draw the symbol for resistor or for capacitor. You have to know that this is the security block diagram. So the block diagrams is sick. It has to be sent to hospital. Right? Yes. Then here it's a homework. I found some 4 terminologies that I want the students themselves to use the concept that I taught you in all the 8 terminologies.